the Black Sabbath lead singer Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. His family have announced this evening. I'm going to read and show you the statement one more time from his family.
2025 and 2026 saw the deaths of some of the world's biggest celebrities, musicians, and television icons. Among them were Oscar winners, rock legends, and a man found dead beside his wife inside a locked house in a case that shocked the country. Some changed music forever. Others helped define television for decades. So which famous names did the world lose during these 2 years? And what really happened behind some of the most shocking deaths? Join us as we look back at the celebrities we lost in 2025 and 2026. David Lynch. David Lynch, the director who created Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Eraserhead, and Twin Peaks, died on January 16, 2025, at 78 years old from cardiac arrest caused by chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Dehydration was listed as a significant contributing factor. In the days before his death, he had been evacuated from his Los Angeles home due to the Southern California wildfires, and sources told Deadline that the disruption had triggered a serious decline in his already fragile health. David had announced in 2024 that he had emphysema, a condition he traced directly to decades of heavy smoking, which he described as something he had absolutely loved right up until it began killing him. He told Sight and Sound magazine that he had become homebound, unable to walk more than a short distance before running out of oxygen. He said nothing like smoking exists in this world, that it was so beautiful, and that in the end it had bitten him. The diagnosis meant he would never direct another feature film. His last major work, Twin Peaks: The Return in 2017, turned out to be his farewell. His family announced his death on Facebook with a statement that has since been quoted everywhere. "There's a big hole in the world now that he's no longer with us, but, as he would say, keep your eye on the donut and not on the hole." David received 4 Oscar nominations across his career, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 1990 for Wild at Heart, and received an honorary Oscar for Lifetime Achievement in 2020. His influence on American cinema and prestige television, through Twin Peaks alone, reaches into almost every serious dramatic series made in the last 30 years. The next death on this list came in the same week as David Lynch's, and it involves a woman who died at 39 years old, with a story that revealed something deeply uncomfortable about what the entertainment industry had done to her as a child. Michelle Trachtenberg. Michelle Trachtenberg, known to one generation as Harriet in Harriet the Spy, to another as Dawn Summers in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and to a third as Georgina Sparks in Gossip Girl, died on February 26, 2025, at 39 years old. She had undergone a liver transplant procedure and did not recover from the complications. She had been a working child actress from the age of 3, appearing in commercials before moving to film and television. The public conversation that followed her death focused not only on the work she had left behind, but on a revelation that her former Buffy the Vampire Slayer co-star, Sarah Michelle Gellar, confirmed publicly. There had been a rule on the Buffy set that Michelle Trachtenberg was never to be left alone with creator Joss Whedon. That disclosure reframed years of public discussion about the show and placed Trachtenberg's death in the specific context of someone who had navigated a dangerous professional environment as a child without the protection she deserved. But if her death revealed something about how the industry treats its youngest workers, the next person on this list died in circumstances so strange, so specific, and so quietly devastating that the whole country stopped to process it for weeks. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. On February 26, 2025, a maintenance worker arrived at Gene Hackman's property on Old Sunset Trail in Santa Fe, New Mexico, found the front door ajar, went inside, and discovered the bodies of Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and their dog. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office confirmed all three were dead and described the circumstances as suspicious enough to warrant a full investigation. Weeks of speculation followed. Carbon monoxide was tested for and ruled out. No foul play was found. And then the medical examiner released the real timeline. And it was worse than any of the theories. Betsy Arakawa died first, on approximately February 11th, from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a rare, potentially fatal disease spread by infected rodent droppings that fills the lungs with fluid. She had searched online for symptoms of dizziness, nosebleeds, COVID, and the flu in the days before her death. She had called a health clinic on February 12th. She died that same day. Her husband, Gene Hackman, had advanced Alzheimer's disease. He had been living alone in that house with her body for approximately 6 days, unable to fully understand what had happened, unable to call for help. His pacemaker confirmed he died on approximately February 17th. His cause of death was severe cardiovascular disease with Alzheimer's as a contributing factor. His autopsy showed he had not eaten for several days before his death. Gene Hackman was 95 years old. He had won 2 Academy Awards for The French Connection in 1972 and Unforgiven in 1993. He had retired from acting in 2004 and moved to New Mexico deliberately and completely away from Hollywood. His children called him Dad and Grandpa. They said they would miss him sorely and were devastated by the loss. He was found in the mudroom off the kitchen. She was found in the bathroom. Their dog was found in a closet near her body. A second dog and a third were roaming the property, alive. The 2 greatest losses of early 2025 both happened on February 26th. And what came in April was a man whose decade-long battle with cancer had quietly stolen his voice before it finally took his life. Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer died on April 2nd, 2025, at 65 years old from pneumonia. His daughter, Mercedes, confirmed the news to the New York Times. The pneumonia was the final chapter of an 11-year health battle that had begun when a tumor was discovered in his throat in 2014. He underwent radiation and chemotherapy that permanently damaged his vocal cords, the instrument that had made him one of the most distinctive voices in American cinema. Val was known for an extraordinary range of iconic performances. He played Tom Iceman Kazansky in Top Gun in 1986, the cold, technically perfect rival who was the mirror image of Maverick's recklessness. He played Jim Morrison in The Doors, with an authenticity so complete that people who had known the real Morrison said it was disturbing. He played Batman in Batman Forever in 1995, and he played Doc Holliday in Tombstone in 1993, delivering the most quotable performance in that film despite competing with Kurt Russell in the title role. His "I'm Your Huckleberry" has been repeated on every continent. In 2022, damaged voice and all, he reprised Iceman in Top Gun, Maverick. He showed up. He delivered the scene. He let the audience sit with what they knew about what it had cost him to be there. He had been in declining health for years before the pneumonia took him. But he made it to the sequel. That matters. The death that followed in April came from a different world entirely, and left a faith community of 1.4 billion people in the middle of one of the most significant institutional transitions in modern history. Pope Francis. Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires in 1936, died on April 21, 2025, at 88 years old. His health had been declining for months, following a series of respiratory issues and hospitalizations that had significantly reduced his public schedule in the final year of his pontificate. He was the first Latin American pope in the history of the Catholic Church, elected in 2013 after the resignation of Benedict XVI, itself a historic event, since papal resignations had not happened for nearly 600 years. He took the name Francis after Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of the poor, and that choice set the tone for a papacy defined by humility, reform, and an approach to the Church's public image that broke sharply from his predecessors. He washed prisoners' feet. He called for economic systems that did not exclude the poor. He welcomed refugees. He engaged directly with questions about climate change, inequality, and the Church's own institutional failures. He alienated Catholic conservatives in multiple countries. He was beloved by millions of Catholics who had felt increasingly disconnected from an institution that seemed more interested in preserving itself than serving its people. His death prompted the election of the first American pope, Pope Leo, from Chicago, marking a historic shift in the direction of an institution that has existed for 2,000 years. The summer of 2025 was when the music world took its hardest hits, and they came within days of each other. Malcolm Jamal Warner. Malcolm Jamal Warner died on July 20th, 2025, at 54 years old. He was on a family vacation in Costa Rica and went swimming. The event instantly became tragic when the current caught him. He died from asphyxia as a result of accidental drowning. He was survived by his wife and their daughter. He was known to the world as Theo Huxtable, the son on The Cosby Show, the teenager whose relationship with Cliff Huxtable gave the show some of its warmest and most genuine moments across 8 seasons from 1984 to 1992. But Warner spent the 30 years after that show deliberately and consistently building a serious adult career, as a musician and bassist, as a dramatic actor in The Resident, Read Between the Lines, and Community, and as someone the industry quietly respected for the range and work ethic he brought to projects that carried none of the nostalgia value of his most famous role. Sadly, he went on vacation he never came back from. The news that broke 2 days later was the one that felt like the end of an era. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, the godfather of heavy metal, the founding frontman of Black Sabbath, died on July 22, 2025, at 76. His family confirmed he died with family around him, surrounded by love. He had Parkinson's disease, which he revealed publicly in 2020. He had survived a near-fatal quad bike accident in 2003 that broke his collarbone and 8 ribs. He had survived a staph infection following spinal surgery in 2019 that had left him partially paralyzed. He had survived addiction and decades of substance abuse so severe that they became the subject of a wildly popular reality television show, The Osbournes, in the early 2000s. He survived all of it. What made his death carry a specific kind of completeness alongside the grief was the timing. 2 weeks before he died, Ozzy performed at Black Sabbath's farewell concert in Birmingham, England, the city where the band was born in 1968, in the shadow of a metal works factory that inspired the sound of heavy metal itself. Metallica performed a tribute set. Guns N' Roses performed a tribute set. Ozzy got on that stage with Parkinson's disease and said goodbye to the music and the audience that had defined his entire life. 2 weeks later, he was gone. Black Sabbath invented a genre. Ozzy was its voice and its face for 50 years. He got his farewell. Not everyone does, but the next name on this list, a man who had lived and fought and survived everything for 78 years, did not get a farewell. He got something much harder. Robert Redford. Robert Redford died on September 16, 2025, at 89 years old, at his home in Sundance, Utah, the place he had named, built, and loved for half a century, surrounded by the people who mattered most to him. He was one of the most naturally magnetic screen presences in the history of American film. A face so handsome, it was almost distracting from the genuine intelligence and control behind it. He won the Academy Award for Best Director for Ordinary People in 1980, and was the subject of an honorary Oscar for Lifetime Achievement in 2002. But the thing Robert built that will outlast every individual performance was the Sundance Film Festival, the institution he created in the Utah mountains in 1978 that became the most important launchpad for American independent cinema in the last 45 years. Sex, Lies, and Videotape premiered there. Reservoir Dogs premiered there. Hoop Dreams premiered there. Napoleon Dynamite, Little Miss Sunshine, Precious, Whiplash, all of them had their public debut at Sundance. Every film on that list was made outside the studio system by filmmakers who needed a platform that the major studios would not provide. Redford built that platform. He used the cultural leverage that his film career gave him to create space for people who had none. He died in Sundance, Utah. The festival he built there will keep running long after every film he appeared in has faded from the cultural foreground. The next person on the list is an actress who defined a generation, and the way she died was heartbreaking. Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton died on October 11, 2025, at 79 years old. A family spokesperson confirmed her health had been declining for several months. She was the most stylistically distinctive actress of her generation, a woman whose specific, inimitable screen quality was so particular that Woody Allen built entire films around understanding it, and whose subsequent career, after she left the Allen orbit, demonstrated that the quality had never belonged to him. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress for Annie Hall in 1977 in a performance that permanently changed what romantic comedy was allowed to look like. She was nominated 3 more times across the following decades. Her personal style, the layers, the ties, the hats, the blazers worn by a woman who had zero interest in dressing the way any version of the entertainment industry expected a woman of any age to dress, was itself a statement that younger generations have returned to consistently as a model for existing in public on your own terms. She was not performing eccentricity. She was simply being herself at full volume for 60 years in front of cameras that would have preferred something more conventional. She was one of the last surviving connections to the new Hollywood era that produced The Godfather, Chinatown, and the most creatively ambitious decade in American cinema history. With her death, that era's direct witnesses are almost entirely gone. And then, in December, the year ended with a loss that was not just about death, but about a gruesome death. A story involving one of the most beloved directors in Hollywood history, and a crime that nobody saw coming. Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner. Rob Reiner, the director of This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men, died in December 2025 at 78 years old, alongside his wife Michelle Singer Reiner. Their deaths were ruled homicides. Their son Nick was subsequently arrested and charged with harming them. Rob Reiner had been one of the most consistently excellent directors in American mainstream cinema since the mid-1980s. He had also been one of the most recognizable faces in American television before that, playing Archie Bunker's liberal son-in-law, Meathead, on All in the Family for 9 seasons from 1971 to 1979. He was one of the very rare people who had a genuine second act in entertainment. leaving behind a successful acting career to become a filmmaker whose output included films that are embedded in the emotional memory of multiple generations. A Few Good Men became the source of one of the most quoted lines in American cinema history. He died at 78. He was harmed in his own home by his son. That is the full, unadorned truth of how his story ended, and nothing about it makes sense. Now, let's move on to the last name, Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson, the founder, songwriter, and creative genius behind the Beach Boys and the architect of Pet Sounds, died in 2025 at the age of 82. His family had confirmed in 2024 that he was living with a significant neurocognitive disorder following the death of his wife Melinda and required full-time care. Pet Sounds, released in 1966, is widely considered one of the 5 greatest albums ever made. Paul McCartney has said publicly that it directly inspired him to make Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. He survived it. He made Pet Sounds. He gave the world God Only Knows, which the BBC has called the greatest song ever written. The music stays. It always stays. So, when you think about the sum of what these people gave, the films, the albums, the performances, the institutions they built from nothing, what do you believe actually survives them? And which of these losses hit you the hardest, and why? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.